Hey there, Vermont. All right, getting some really good questions. So I figured what we're going to do here is a quick little video on how you can check in on the legislation, the process, where it's going from committee to committee. The H.57 S.25 bill is just one of many bills in this 2019 political agenda coming out of the Vermont House and the Vermont Senate. Hey Gregory, how you doing? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to this is a quick video on where you can actually check in, let's say, and keep tabs on what your representatives are doing either for you or against you down in Montpelier, Vermont. Because let's face it, this is starting to get really ridiculous. I just read an article from 7 Days, and they were posting basically the blackface days of theater back in our society. And let's face it, there was a comment from a person that is either attending Northern University, which used to be Linden State. Before that, those schools had to merge, if they were forced to merge, or whether they financially are so restrained that they've had to downsize. However you want to look at this, I got to admit, I remember back when I was coming out of the U.S. military after serving this country honorably in 2 fast-attack nuclear submarines and as a U.S. Navy diver off the coast of Vladivostok, Russia in December of '91 when it collapsed. Missed many Thanksgivings, many Christmases, many holidays, many birthdays, to come back to my own state and see the kind of legislation being proposed in the Vermont House and the Vermont Senate. This socialist push right now here in Vermont. And let's face it, Leahy, Sanders, and Welch may have jumped on that bandwagon, but I think these gentlemen have forgotten that the Soviet Union collapsed in '91 for a reason. I studied Russian history all the way back from the Tsars, the Bolshevik Revolution, the key players in that revolution, right up to present day. And this is starting to get really, it's not only scary when you see your own state starting to utilize legislation in other countries that were socialist, communist, and it's getting to be a little, it's not, well, yeah, it's scary, I guess, because the amount of times I spent out, the amount of time, let's just say, me and my crew members of 2 fast-attack nuclear submarines spent gathering intelligence on the former USSR, the Soviet Union that collapsed in December of '91. Now under Vladimir Putin, it's the Russian state. And then off the coast of China, back in '89, when Tiananmen Square went down, to pull into Hong Kong to just, let them know that we were there and show the American flag. And North Korea, trust me, we've kept our eyes on North Korea for quite some time. And if you can't see on that peninsula alone, where South Korea has seen prosperity, has seen growth, has seen their population grow in a positive way, where up in the little part of North Korea, you've got Kim Jong-un in a dictatorship that has starved their people, that is, basically just being supplied by China. I mean, come on. And then to look at some of this legislation that's being proposed here. So listen, let's do a quick little video on where you can kind of check in on your representatives that's representing you in the Vermont House and the Vermont Senate. And we're going to start showing Vermonters where they can actually look up these bills. They can go through and read them line by line item. You can see all the, who's sponsoring these bills. And then I'm going to also show you where you can actually check up on where these donations are coming from, or let's just say these corporate sponsors, and where this money is basically being thrown at them for these presentations in order to pitch, their new energy forecast, predictions and assumptions of the future. Okay, now listen, this Green New Deal. Vermont is a very rural state, very small populated state, and if you go to the Vermont, I'm going to kind of just give you a walkthrough through the websites where you can actually go, and then you can place these bill numbers in the search engine, and you can actually see the process and the progress of, for example, seeing how the H.57 and the S.25 abortion rights bill has really energized a lot of Vermonters that have woken up that probably didn't realize how long this had been going on in the state of Vermont. You go to the www.Vermont.Gov page. I'm going to bring it up real quick. We're going to just kind of walk right through this. Pardon me. I just have to one-hand type here. There we go. I'm going to flip the screen here. So there's your Vermont. There's the website, Vermont.Gov portal, okay? You go over here where we see our Governor Phil Scott, your elected officials, okay? Statewide officials, representatives, state senators, local officials, and your government. So all the information, if you want to get in touch with them, how to get in touch with them, how to email them, right up in there. Now, you go down here, if you want to hit and click legislature, it brings up your House of Representatives, the Senate. There's the current House calendar, your current Senate calendar, okay? The House bills released for introduction. So, for example, I'm just going to click right there just to see where it brings you off into. And see, here's all of the list of many of the bills, okay? H is the bills that are being, read or brought up in the Vermont House. You can select the Senate right there. See if it'll, well, let's just, and then you can go to both. But anyways, here's some of the bills, right? So the H annotates that it's in the Vermont House. You click, this is on an act relating to regulation and neonicotinoid pesticides. I hope I enunciated that one correctly. That was a big one. Hey, how you doing there, Ed Hawkins? Hi, Pat McDonald. How are you? So listen, you go in and you can select by clicking on that bill. It'll then bring up, and here's where you can check all the sponsors of this bill. Okay, there's a long list, and we'll just kind of scroll for the example. These are all of the representatives that have sponsored this bill, which seems to be a very, very, very long list. And then you can go right down. There's the committee activity, staff and other information. But I want to give you an example though. This is presently probably a proposed bill that is just being read and it hasn't been posted yet. But let me go back. And let's go, for example, I want to go to and see all of this stuff on the side. You have your House bills, Senate bills. Let's go click Senate bills and see what comes up. And here we go. So PR, elections, governors, 4-year term of office. So, and listen, I am not an expert on all the little abbreviations yet, but for example, here's S1. Okay, so that's in the Vermont Senate. This is an act to repeal a sunset-related transporting large capacity ammunition feeding devices into Vermont shooting competitions. So you click on S1. This brings it up. You can go right here. There's P21. I can bring up as introduced. Okay? So here's the bill right here. As it was introduced, you can scroll down, you can read through it line item by line item. Because let's face it, in the legal community, they love to put all these little numbers down here. And you can actually download either the drafts. Hold on a second, I'm just going to flip this quick. So you can download the drafts, you can read through these bills that are being suggested. For example, this is bill introduced 2019 S1, introduced by Senator Rogers. Okay, referred to committee on whatever date. Subject is the criminal procedures, weapons, large capacity ammunition feeding devices. Statement of purpose of a bill as introduced. This bill proposes to repeal the July 1st, 2019 sunset on allowing large capacity ammunition feeding devices to be transported into Vermont for shooting competitions. I mean, okay. We're starting to an act relating to repealing a sunset related to transporting large capacity ammunition feeding devices into Vermont for shooting competitions. It is hereby enacted by the General Assembly of the State of Vermont, Section 1, repeal. And then what they do is, I'm going to show you how they highlight or they underline. So these are the acts. Okay, you can read right through for yourself. Effective, they'll probably put in the date once it's passed, but this is just an example. So then I can go back and let's see. This is when. So on January 15th, okay, you've got, pardon me, I'm just going to give my other hand a little break here. Senator Ash, Senator Meza, Senator Balint, and Senator Benning. Okay, the joint Senate resolution adopted on the part of the Senate. Okay, and you can go down through. What this does is this allows you to read through all of the bills that are being introduced. Okay, so there's S1, S2, S3, S4, S5, yada, yada, yada. We keep going down. We're scrolling down. Boom. Okay, and there's the date. On a motion of Senator Ash, the Senate adjourned until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Wednesday, January 16th. Okay? The dates, the times, the sponsors are all right there. The H bills are in the Vermont House. The S bills are in the Vermont Senate. And I'll show you what you can do. Whoops. Boom. So, right here, S1, okay? S1, and here's the sponsor. And you can click on Senator John Rogers. There's the young man right there. His district is Essex Orleans District. He's a Democrat, seat 3. There's his email address. There's his mailing address. There's his home phone. And you can go through and actually see the committees that he's sitting on. Okay. It breaks down, his biography, where he's from. And there's bills and resolutions sponsored by Senator Rogers. All right there. Okay, so, and these are all of the listings. And so, now, For example, this JRS-14, the joint resolution condemning the murder of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi, and affirming the central importance of freedom of the press. So, here's a quick little video. That's how you can get onto the website and you can start looking at the legislation before it, how it's being read on the floor. You can contact your representatives, let them know where you stand or what you feel they certainly should be addressing and adding into this legislation to make it fit Vermont versus what is being dictated in other states. I mean, listen, California's California, New York is New York, Connecticut is Connecticut. And most of these, massive populated states, some of that legislation, or actually a vast amount of that legislation, is not going to work here in the state of Vermont. They, listen, it all sounds good, these ideas that are being thrown up there, but you got to realize too, there's a lot of lazy individuals down there that are just trying to, hey, let's go check on another state, download that thing, boom, hey, we can indoctrinate that right here in Vermont. It's not that hard to do the research, to do a little bit of the homework, and believe me, you're just one of many Vermonters that are seriously frustrated as to why some of these bills are being written the way they are here in the state of Vermont. I mean, we've got, I can go right down through here. I don't want to bore you with you got an act relating to state hemp program, an act relating to placing a moratorium on school district mergers ordered by the State Board of Education, S.51. Now that's an important piece, because if we're not already feeling the forced merging coming down, so here we go. And I'm just going to flip this real quick. So boom, here we're back on the website, and we can go click here as introduced. Boom, there you go, S.51. Okay, introduced by Senators Brock, Benning, McCormick, Parent, Polina, Rogers, Starr, and Westman. Referred to on committee. The Education School District mergers. State Board of Education order to merge. The moratorium. Statement of the purpose of the bill. And yada, yada, yada. You can go right down through and take a look at the legislation. Okay? How it's read, the effective date is all in the process of being decided in the Vermont House and the Vermont Senate, the legislative branches. And then we know how the vote goes, and right now we are in a seriously lopsided Democrat/progressive socialist supermajority that is just, hammering you with this never-ending restriction on many of the freedoms that Vermonters used to enjoy for quite some time. And I really do not feel that groupthink is the best way for Vermont to move in the future. We have a lot of very talented Vermonters that have traveled the planet, that have done some outstanding things in either, the private sector, public, service, and yet we're just constantly being ignored. And let's face it, it's not that hard to find this money trail either. And actually that brings up another good question from another person who wanted to know where to look up. Whoops, hold on 1 second. I gotta go back. A little too many PDFs. Get rid of this one. Get rid of that one. This one. So if you want to actually see the contributions of your elected officials, okay, you can actually go to the, and I just had that sheet, and maybe I should probably save that for another video, but the website that Jim Kondos has for businesses how to file as a nonprofit or as a corporate model, you also have the elections section that you can select, and then you can go in and you can see many of the donors locally, or if you want to keep tabs on Leahy, Sanders, and Welch, I'll also show you those websites where you can actually go down the long list of corporate sponsors, how much money they're paying each one of these legislators to basically cram the stuff they want down your throat. So as much as, you know, I may come off as a little semi-sarcastic at times, it's because, I mean, I just can't believe what I'm witnessing here in the state of Vermont. I realize Vermont is an anti-business state. I know how much they hate people that have really good ideas and great innovations that could actually be turned into a successful business model. I mean, my God, it's just, that's why this state is dying, and it needs to be turned around. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this stuff out. I mean, I've seen it slowly progress, and it seems to be a one-sided, lopsided, process at this point in time. Hey, JT, how you doing? So listen, we've got to get engaged. This is your state, the state of Vermont. We have legislators that are being presented to constantly, and it's not too bad. It's not too hard to keep up on these bills, and the websites where you can go and actually check up on these bills, who's sponsoring them, when they're in draft form, when they go into committee. I mean, the H.57 and the S.25 are just, two examples, and it really woke up a lot of Vermonters. And let's face it, it's 46 years after Roe versus Wade. We've got technologies today that have made things so much safer. And you've got to get involved if you want to be a part of the process. I mean, anybody who's age of 18 and up that is a registered Vermonter that wants to vote, that wants to get involved in this process should. I mean, this is your little state. Vermont has always had an independent spirit. And, I mean, you can't you can't go by California or by New York. It's a complete different little state and ecosystem here. It's a very rural state. It needs to be addressed. We don't even have the infrastructure that these big Green New Deal dreams that they're tossing up in the air. And let's face it, I admit it's awesome to have funding so you can go toe-to-toe with Bernie Sanders, Leahy, or Welch. But it's kind of hard when you've got a state that is so broke and is so run down, and the infrastructure is so broken right now, and people are just trying to exist, let alone try to help new faces get up and running. And we've got some great people out there. And I don't care what anybody says. Vermont is an innovative little state. Very intelligent. There's not a thing that a Vermonter can't learn if they're brought up and mentored. And, we're kind of seeing it with the indoctrination of this Sanderism, this whole Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezism. And, yes, as much as they like to try to label, project things on others, and divide people in order to keep the Green New Deal going, right now, that $500 million fossil fuel proposal is just way too aggressive. There's only a 12-year window in Vermont, okay? Or actually, if you go by the federal Green New Deal, in 12 years, the climate change apocalypse is coming. It's done. There's no way that we can change the environment. And I'm sorry, Mother Earth is a lot stronger than that, as well as we've got individuals that are... Listen, I understand Suncommon is going to want to get in on that portion of the business. It's a business model they're presenting to the state of Vermont. They would like to win some of that 30,000 acres of solar farms. Okay, they want to compete for that business. Not too hard to figure that out. Then you've got the industrial wind turbines companies that are out there. We used to have one up here in Berrytown, but let's face it, after those tax-funded grants, and many of these other countries started designing their own, let's just say, Green New Deal approaches, their own technologies, their own, well, some countries haven't. Let's face it, otherwise the yellow vest protests in Paris wouldn't be going on, destroying half of, the history and everything in Paris. You've got to get involved. And it's not that hard to check in on these things. You can easily go to these websites. And I realize, okay, if you don't have a computer, then, we'll find other ways to communicate. We're starting to connect with individuals across all 14 counties of the state of Vermont that are feeling, seriously ignored. And there's just this one lopsided pitch all the time. And people are feeling like they can't participate and that their vote no longer counts. And that's just not the case. You can get in there. We've got some outstanding, experienced individuals that have worked in several different industries. They've seen how, when you're competing or you're trying to change and go into a different direction, it is going to take time. And it's just like, I kind of joke about how when I was going for my MIS degree, my professors, we had this paperless society that was supposed to happen in 20 years. Well, I kind of like to go back and pick on my professors up at the University of Vermont. Where's this paperless society? I mean, even so, it's changed a lot. We were making great progress, but it's still, first off, Vermont is not fully connected digitally across the state. We've already learned now, they're promising fiber optic now, coming in another 18 and a half months or so. Most of the, let's just say, face it, most of the college areas, that's where they're going to lay that fiber optic down first, because that's been Vermont's, money-making machine. Just like I saw on 7 days, because of the 3 Democrats down in Virginia, you've got 2 white gentlemen facing racist charges from the blackface era of our society, and 1 lieutenant governor now facing sexual assault allegations. And it's kind of scary that you can't even, if you got people that want to participate in this process, but yet you've got all this fear-mongering going on, because let's face it, my God, if you were in that generation back in the past where actors did the blackface thing, and you were actually in a theater group, boy, and you ever decide to run for a public office, yep, this is the kind of stuff that they're going to dig up on you, and they're going to decide to just leak it into the press so it creates whatever. That's not our process. Listen, that reminds me of the Soviet Union. It reminds me of China. It reminds me of North Korea. That is not the way our process works. If you've got some really good ideas, okay, if you want to participate in the public sector, you want to run for either a local office locally to stay in your community, become a Vermont House representative, or a state senator, the process is not that hard. 50 signatures, not too tough for some of those local seats, and you get to really impact and be a part of what the future is going to be for the state of Vermont going into this next this 21st century. And I think I gotta admit, what I'm getting seriously tired about, it reminds me of when I was coming out of the U.S. Naval Submarine Service, trying to put myself through UVM. And every other, there would be a demonstration for indigenous people, okay? And then there would be a demonstration for, black heritage rights and black history, okay? Meanwhile, I was so busy trying to put myself through college. And yes, it's not like I studied history, I studied civics, I did this, and I actually see these techniques being used, from socialist, former communist countries that have collapsed, and now these little tactics are being used in our politics in order to disrupt the American political system, the dream of America, okay? And I think it's something that seriously needs to be addressed. This is getting to get, seriously old. Just because you're white, you're automatically assumed to be a racist. No due process. Not even knowing anything about the individual. How much I've served with every walk of life in the military from across the planet. But yet, in the political realm, let's just project it, cast it, create the distraction, and not get anything done. That reminds me of the Soviet Union. It reminds me of the communist doctrine, the socialist communist doctrine. This is the kind of tactics that if you're not good enough, if you're kind of mediocre, or if you're seriously lazy, well, then let's start using some of the dirtier tactics in politics in order to destroy people's lives or their families, or just project something on someone that you know nothing about that individual. I don't know, that's not, I just do not, that reminds me of the former Soviet Union that collapsed. It reminds me of the wall finally being taken down in Germany, unifying Germany. The reason freedom is what a lot of these people fought and died for, suffering in these countries. And now we've got this kind of just because Sanders has been out there on the public speaking circuit, and he did pretty well against one of the most corrupt, worst choices in democratic history as far as I'm concerned. And now we've got to just deal with this dirty politics all the time. Just if you want to run for a public office, or, I don't know, 7 days, that article, that makes sense. They wanted to expose UVM's past, but when you really look at that, UVM was founded in 1791. You want to talk about a college that has evolved through all of these changes in our society, okay? And yet now, 7 days jumps on the blackface, portion of our history in order to what? Sell papers. Not too hard to figure that out, okay? That is, so it's all about the money. They want to sell their article, which, listen, I don't blame them. But let's just kind of wake up, smell the coffee, which, speaking of, I could use a cup of coffee. But this has got to change. This is getting a little too ridiculous. And we're going to show some more videos on how you can keep tabs on what's going on down in Montpelier. Stay engaged. You can share this information with your neighbors. The individuals that don't have computers, well, hey, have a little house party. Let's go down through the House bills that are being proposed. Whatever it takes in order to get the message out there. The information is there. I realize Vermont isn't the 100% digitally connected that many have claimed in the past, and I do realize there's many economic demographics in Vermont where certain individuals can't afford the either the connections or a computer. There's awesome resources at a lot of the libraries throughout the state of Vermont. If you live close to one of these universities, I'm pretty sure you are allowed, being one of the local taxpayers, they do have places where you can either log in, go to that website, and keep tabs on what's going on down in good old Montpelier. So I hope that was informative. I hope it helps individuals and it answers the questions on where you can go. And just for a quick synopsis, we'll close this out. So these are where you can go. Okay, it's the Vermont General Assembly. I showed you where you could go back. If you want to see, and again, you can click committees. You can do a search. For example, we'll do the, let's see the, I want to see where the H.57 is right now. Let's see if I can do this. You search. Okay, so, oh, hold on. I might have done that wrong. There we go. Whoops, sorry. Even designing this stuff, once in a while we make mistakes. So, so here's your H.57 bill, an act relating to preserving the right of abortion. Here's your sponsors, okay? You can select it. There's the full long list of sponsors. And if you want to just click on the sponsor, it'll bring up their contact info. So here's the status right down here. This is basically telling you the complete breakdown. And this is where, okay, went into committee, read for the first time. We already know that result. So that was a 7-3 vote to approve it. But let's just take a look. So here's these are the bills. They're up here is where you'll see all the sponsors, okay, and then you can read down through. There's H.56 relating to this. This is the natural resources, fish and wildlife. Now here's H.57. Now there was a lot of individuals that wanted me to send them the list of sponsors, and you can see there's the beginning list of H.57, and it extends down here, and here's the end of the sponsors, okay? House bill entitled An Act Relating to Preserving the Rights of Abortion, to the Committee on House Services, okay? We already know that committee, right off the bat, after a public hearing, approved it 7-3. So then that sends it off into the Judiciary Committee. And I can show you how to keep tabs on that. So anyway, that's a small little snippet on where you can go to the website. I'll flip it over again just to help out. There we go. And how I got here, I have Chuck wanting to, I got to answer his question here in a minute, but anyway, was off of the www.Vermont.Gov page. Under Governor Phil Scott's face, you got a selection, and you can go through. There's the legislative schedule. Here we go. So let's give a quick look. And for example, I'll just kind of show you. You can either scroll down through, and TBD is probably to be decided on the floor times, yada yada. So this is the agenda. Now, right up here, you click this little bad boy. Brings up the legislative calendar PDF. You can save that file. And for example, I'll just do it. And on my browser right up here, it's showing that it's been downloaded into my little secret dodecaphonic lot of Vermont legislative stuff that's being proposed in 2019. And it will be a great way for Vermonters to get involved. I've already had several questions from individuals that want to run for either a local office, what they have to do. I'll be showing another little video of that website and where they can go to the election process and how many signatures. It kind of breaks down what you have to do if you want to become one of the elected officials, either locally, on a statewide level. And let's face it, between Leahy, Sanders, and Welch, we certainly need a lot more individuals opposing those three gentlemen. So, hope that was informative. And if you have any questions, get in contact through my the Green Mountain Republicans Facebook. I'm going to be doing a bunch of changes on the websites because I've figured out a whole new little more efficient process, and it seems that some individuals, like you said, or like, you know, through the questions, I mean, the website served its purpose. It's doing great. I'm hoping to, you know, finally figure out the last little bit of the bugs in order to get the purchasing side working. But for now, there's your quick little demonstration on how to keep tabs on the Vermont House and the Vermont Senate, the bills being proposed, and how you can follow them through the process, and possibly even help them write much better legislation, because it is your tax dollars at work. And I realize we do need to create more jobs here in the state of Vermont. I know I'm tired of, you know, just the part-time, first-time job openings, because individuals are, you know, we're all looking for a good paying one job where we can either that or build a successful business model in a very anti-business state. So, again, we are overtaxed and overregulated. If these carbon tax initiatives pass, Vermont will be the smallest state with the smallest population, and we will be the #1 most taxed state in the nation, just off of that tax proposal, with that $500 million 12-year plan to avoid the climate change apocalypse. And looking at that plan, they're destroying a lot of the environment to achieve that goal. So wake up and get involved. It's really, it's your civic duty as a Vermonter. Anybody 18 and above that can legally vote. Going to have a little story too on some of that absentee ballot stuff. We're going to show some folks on what's going on there, because like I said, there are some areas and some districts that seem to be having a challenge getting an accurate voting. There seems to be a growth in certain Vermont communities that isn't there. Either they're just jet-setting around the world and they've got just a part-time residence here in Vermont or whatever, but there's definitely some stuff going on within our election cycle across all 180 counties. You know, and I realize certain counties are not as wealthy as others, or, you know, the voting districts, but Vermonters should be paying attention and really holding these folks accountable. So anyway, I hope that was informative. If you have any questions, please leave a comment and then get in touch with me. Talk to you soon. Have a great day.